Battle of Hoth is a game that I picked up at Gen Con 2025 when I realized that there was a game based on the same game system of Commands and Colors and Memoir 44. I had to have it, so I picked it up and I brought it home and I played it. I played it solo, two-handed solo, like I played many other games in the same game system. Yes, it's a card-driven game and I always found the system perfect for two-handed solo. The only life hack, instead of playing a card and then drawing a card at the end of your turn, you play a card, you put your hand face down, and you'll draw the new card at the beginning of the following turn instead of at the end of the current turn. Super simple little trick, but even if you remember which cards you have, which I usually don't, you still don't know exactly all of your hand because you'll get the new one next turn. So I played the game two-handed solo. So you're gonna have the board, which is double-sided, but this is the side you're gonna use in almost every case. You have 18 standard scenarios, very nice. 17 standard scenarios, and the 18th is the epic scenario for which you need 2 copies of the game. So I haven't played that one because I don't know anybody in my town that has a second copy, and I only have one. And a lot of variety, a lot of different things that may happen, different objectives. For example, right now I set up scenario 15, and since I took the trouble of setting it up, I'm gonna play it after I film this segment and before I film the conclusions of the video. Usually destroying a lot of enemy units will give you a victory, but different scenarios may also change things. Here, for example, we are retreating through the southern gate, and so the rebels do not score points for eliminating Imperial units, but they need to get the heck out of there. So a lot of variety there. You can play any scenario individually, plus we have 2 campaigns, not 1 but 2. That's pretty neat. Each comes with its own little booklet, although it's a sheet of paper folded in 2, one for the Imperial player, one for the rebels, and simply gives you specifications on how to play specific scenarios in a certain order. And that will link the events. We'll link the events in a narrative fashion. That's super neat. So we got the board. Speaking of components, before I forget, you also have the card holders here. Very neat. Of course, I haven't used them yet because I only played the game two-handed solo, so I don't want to see the hand that is not used. Each player has a standard deck of cards, plus we have cards that will come into play if you play the campaigns. Plus we got leaders. And I seem to remember seeing this idea in some of the Commands and Colors game. So each leader has 3 cards, as you can see there. So we got Darth Vader, we got other people. And if you decide to play with the leaders, each player takes the 3 cards corresponding to a leader and shuffles them inside their deck. And the same, of course, would happen here if we play with Leia or Luke or Han. Yeah, when I play later, Darth for one and the princess for the other side. The system, if you played any game in the system, you're probably familiar with. Game units are divided into a certain number of miniatures. Say, for example, the snow speeders take 3 miniatures. The rebel infantry has 2 miniatures. The infantry of the Imperials have 4. We have the glorious AT-80s. Things like that. Then you have player rates, and you'll be very familiar with them. You'll keep them handy, especially at the beginning. They tell you how far units move when you activate them, and also how far they fire, and also how many dice. So, for example, we have infantry. Rebel infantry moves by 0 or 1 hex, and then can fire, or 2 hexes and not fire. And if they fire, they roll 3 dice against adjacent 2 hexes of distance, and only 1 dice left. 3 hexes away. Plus, the number can be modified, maybe modified by terrain. For example, if the opponent is on a ridge and you're not, or if the opponent is hiding among rocks. And we have a similar play rate with different stats. So there's no speeders, are very fast, and they just pour a lot of punishment on enemies if they manage to get that close. The 80-80 are very reliable. And of course they are hard to take down, meaning that after you score hits against them, you have to reroll the hits again to confirm whether or not you're actually able. But if you are able to destroy one, of course, that's double the number of victory points that you score otherwise. Commands and colors / Memoir 44. So the way it works, we're going to have our cards that will indicate one or more sectors of the board. The board is divided into 3 sectors. And for example, this card will allow me to activate any 2 units on this side of the board. Oh, I got a tower there. Doesn't move but shoots nicely. So I can activate any 2. If a unit is right on the edge in between 2, it counts as being in both for the purpose of activation. This will allow me to activate only 1, but it's recon, so it gives me an advantage when it comes to drawing cards next turn. Or other cards, you simply do what the effect says, and they can be very powerful, especially the leaders. Suppose I decide to activate to play this card, then I'll get to activate 2 units here, and again the units will move and then they can attack. And so, for example, not that it makes any sense here, because remember the scenario is get the heck out of there, but just so you see, I would move this one here and this one here. That one cannot attack because we moved that by 2. These move by 1, and they're fine against the enemies. At that distance, they roll 2 dice, and I simply roll. Boom. Haha. Each symbol that matches the unit I'm fighting against, it's a hit. Right now, those people get 2 hits. That's pretty awesome. So, infantry has 2 hit dice, so they get hit 2 out of 6 times. This scores a hits against vehicle. This scores a hits against anything. Plus also you need that symbol to confirm the hit against an 80-80. This is retreat. Not everybody retreats. The towers don't retreat or ever move. The 88s don't retreat. Infantry does. For each result like that, after you apply losses, they need to retreat away. And there's the true complete miss. So that's the general idea. You will play cards. Let me reset it. You will play cards for activating and moving units, trying to take advantage of the terrain, try to take advantage of the tactical situation, figuring out ways so you don't get stuck with one sector that doesn't have anybody and you have a ton of cards for that one there. And you continue like this, turn after turn, alternating activations until a player has achieved the victory conditions of the scenario. So I played the scenario that I mentioned in the main segment. That was quick. I think it was less than 15 minutes. Just a couple of turns, bam, bam. Because one side was trying to get out of there and they had to walk around some impassable obstacles as the other side was pummeling them. So scenarios can be very quick. In general, I do think that these scenarios are faster than definitely the ones in Commands and Colors, and possibly also Memoir 44. Is it my impression, but the board is a little smaller than Memoir 44? But I know you're immediately right there. You don't have to spend a lot of time getting to the heart of the action, although you still have enough room in the rear of both sides to maneuver, to readjust, of course to play with those hexes in between 2 sectors to increase your chances of activating them, chaining them from middle to intermediate. Now I'm going to one of the 2 wings. So there's a lot that you can do in battles that again are quick, intense, and satisfying. A lot of different scenarios, and they really play so differently. Again, this time the one with the evacuation, very different from the ones where you're there trying to inflict pain as much as possible. and maybe from the very beginning, maybe you're waiting for reinforcements, then so you're like holding onto your position, then you go and you unleash champagne. So the victory conditions and other game effects, troops that do different things in different scenarios, they do add a very different flavor. They give a very different flavor from scenario to scenario. The game looks very good when set up, so there is that static material factor. From the point of view of production, however, something that happened also with some of the Commands and Color games, I don't know, it's slightly stingy when it comes to the tokens. You just don't have enough tokens for all of the banners that you need, and also some scenarios use the banner tokens for other stuff. So I just repurpose a couple of cubes from my generic supply of generic game components. So I added some cubes to act as tokens. And the hexes for terrain, they're double-sided with two different types of terrain, one on each side. That means when you're setting up, it's not enough to find a hex that has a ridge or a hex with a trench. You need to make sure that the other side doesn't have something else that you also need. And so after you set up the game and you're missing 3 hexes, you go through those and you redo a couple of things. Not a big deal, but not ideal either. And that's pretty much the only complaint, which is a tiny one that I have about the game, because the game is great. All the fun and the flavor and the action and the back and forth and the strategy that you have in card-driven games in the Memoir 44 Commands and Color system, in a very digestible package with a lot of chrome, a lot of theme, and the theme is it's pretty fun. It's a fun one. That's I think I always thought that there was more potential in that system to explore more fictional scenarios, fictional franchises. I hope this is the first of many in which you branch out into multiple fantastic worlds and situations. It's great. It's fun, and as I mentioned, it's perfectly playable two-handed soul. I never had any problems. Still plenty of surprises, still plenty of unpredictable situations that emerge, and yet also enough strategy, enough depth that you feel is not just a card fest or a dice fest, but in the aggregate, your decisions and your planning will matter for not for everything, but for a lot, which is pretty much what I want in a game that has a combat, has its main feature, has a war game feel to it, because I need some unpredictability there. So Battle of Hoth, between the scenarios, the objectives, the campaign, the leaders, you're going to have a lot of variety, and that is going to help the system stay young for a long time. And the system itself, the core idea, quick, intense, card-driven action in the world of Star Wars, is a great idea, and it is implemented very well.